The host of the Chuck Todd cast. Chuck Todd, he's also the former moderator of Meet the Press. Chuck Todd, good to see you. Thank you very much for making the time for us. New inflation numbers out this week. Inflation down again. Jobs numbers are up. Gas prices are down. The border is under control. $100 billion in tax relief on the way to Americans when they file between now and April. But, Chuck, the data shows Republicans could be in trouble. If it is the economy, stupid, at this point in the game, why does that not seem to be quite resonating for them?
Well, I don't think people feel it yet, right? Look, these numbers, in some ways, right, the inflation numbers are just coming down. Let's see what the tax refund situation is, right? Meaning, do people have extra money, or does that money get eaten up, right, by electric bills and higher costs and healthcare, et cetera, and how do people feel about it? But one thing we do know historically, when it comes to trying to judge what economy do voters vote on in November? Do they vote on the economy that's taking place in that moment, or do they vote on what they feel like the economy is, which usually is about a 4 to 6 months lagging indicator, right? I mean, the first lesson I got in this was back in the 1992 campaign. Bill Clinton won. The economy was the reason. It was a recovering economy. The public didn't feel it until after the election, harming George H.W. Bush. So timing is everything. What do people feel like, think this economy is like on Memorial Day? And that will tell me whether Republicans have a boxer's chance here to sort of push back on history. Because history indicates, it's not just, it's history, right? 6 year of a second term.
You know, I was just going to say 1992 because the recession ended in March, but they were still talking about the economy. People were not happy about the economy in November. George H.W. Bush loses that election. We're just talking about data and polling. One of the most respected polling companies in America announced this week they will stop tracking and publishing presidential job approval and political figure favorability ratings this year. That's Gallup. They've been doing it since 1938. Your thoughts on this, and is it an admission that political polling in the Trump era, in the digital era, isn't really that reliable?
I think it is reliable. I mean, I think in some ways we've seen, I mean, if you look at what the president's approval rating was, for instance, in November of 2018, it looked a lot like what approval ratings for previous presidents were during midterms that went the wrong way, right? So I don't think it's a messed up indicator. I think this is a mistake by Gallup. Presidential approval, you talk to any pollster, it's a good way to sort of ground your poll from survey to survey, right? You know, one of the things, the way I read polls, I like to watch the trend lines because different pollsters have different methodologies, different weighting, and like Quinnipiac always has a Democratic favorability, meaning it's always a little 2 to 5 points better for Democrats, but it's consistent that way. Rasmussen has a little, but it's consistent, and as long as it's consistent, you can see it. And so, Gallup, you have this historic data. I think giving it up, they're going to regret doing this because I think it helps you understand the rest of your survey.
Chuck, Minnesota, Tim Walz is out. Amy Klobuchar is in. Polls show Minnesotans aren't that big on Donald Trump, but they're not that big on the current Democrat administration that they have there either. Is this a potential pickup for Republicans?
I think if Tim Walz were running for a third term, I would be more bullish on Republican chances there. I'm slightly less bullish because I think Klobuchar has shown she's shown an ability to not get defined by the far left of her party. And in Minnesota, that's not easy because there's a lot of progressives in that state. And I think Tim Walz got dragged further to the left. You take a look at Amy Klobuchar, and look, I've watched her run her races for years. Her father was a very popular sports writer, and she does really well in the Iron Range, which is basically a very blue collar, sort of the in the 80s and 90s you'd have said traditional blue collar Democrats, who of course are all Trump voters. So she has a unique hold. So I think this was a rescue mission, frankly, by Democrats to say there was probably only one Democrat that could solve this problem for them. let's see how the campaign goes.
Let's talk about Congress quickly. Cook Political lists 18 toss-up seats in the House. Are there a couple of seats that you're watching as a barometer of where each party really is in this fight for the majority?
So it's difficult on the House level because we're still in the middle of this redistricting fights. Both Florida and Virginia could remap. We know Maryland could remap. But I will say this. I look on the Democratic side, meaning if they have a good night or a bad night, I look at a place like Iowa, which is a state that when they've had the majority in the past, they've had a couple of seats out of Iowa. 3 of them are in play. So I look at this. You tell me if those 3 of those 4 House seats are basically swing districts. The party that owns that wins 2 of them, it has a better shot at being in the majority. Yeah. If Democrats think they're going to be a majority party, they've got to make inroads in places like Iowa. They can't do this on the back of the Mid-Atlantic.
Right. Okay. Well, we're just at the beginning here, but it's going to go quick. The host of the Chuck Todd cast and the former moderator of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.